New figures show a sharp rise in drug driving cases, with prosecutions up 37% nationally so far this year, and a staggering 105% increase in Clare. More than 2,050 people have appeared before district courts for drug driving in the first 10 months of 2025 alone, the highest level on record. 39 people came before the Clare District Court system on drug driving charges during that period. And the Ireland South Fianna Fáil MEP Cynthia Ní Mhurchú says these cases are just the tip of the iceberg and is calling for tougher enforcement and expanded roadside drug testing this Christmas. She joins us now to discuss the growing dangers on our roads and what needs to be done to tackle it. Cynthia, very good morning to you. Thanks for being with us.
Alan, happy Christmas to you and the listeners.
Those statistics that are read out certainly would raise an eyebrow. 37%, excuse me, national increase in just 10 months is alarming, but in Clare, a 105% rise. What do you think that tells us about the situation in this county?
Well, like a lot of other counties, you're not alone. There is an epidemic of drug taking and people who are drug taking deciding to drive, and as a result being detected and being brought before the district courts. So, I mean, we know of old that the huge culture of heavy drinking and over drinking in Ireland has long been eclipsed by drug taking, and we have a cocaine epidemic. Cannabis can be thrown in for good measure there as well, benzodiazepines as well, and also opioids, because coroner analysis on road fatalities has found that all of those drugs, due to the toxicology examination and results, have been found in the systems of those who have been either convicted or who have lost their lives. So, look, this is not a new phenomenon. I think that Garda Síochána are doing a wonderful job. They're getting on top of it, because quite clearly part of the figures that we're seeing, the rise in figures, is because they're doing their job so well. But of course, they've got finite resources. And during this busy season, I'm calling this out right now, with a couple of weeks to go to Christmas and into the new year. We've got a really busy month on our roads, and we've got a really busy month in our pubs, clubs, hotels and establishments that serve drinks, and also, of course, people drinking in their homes. But unfortunately, drug taking is quite the mixture now. It's quite the cocktail. And people do not seem to be deterred by the penalties that are already on the statute books in relation to driving disqualifications or hefty fines or potentially a criminal record. And they seem to be defying the law. And, of course, mixed into drink and drug taking then is speed, because the first thing one does is, apart from losing concentration or losing control over the vehicle, but usually there is a huge amount of false confidence injected into one's system when you're buoyed up by drink and drugs, and the speeding takes over. Behind all of these statistics, Alan, as you know, there are grieving families, schools, classrooms, grannies and granddads, and that grieving and that pain goes on for decades. And we saw new figures as well today with road traffic deaths in this year, which again has gone up higher than last year. So look, enough is enough, as they say, and let's make sure that all our minds are applied towards this huge soaring number during this season.
And the percentages and numbers that we've mentioned, as I say, people will find alarming, but you've described these court cases as the tip of the iceberg, which, as you say, Gardaí have finite resources. Why do you believe the true scale of drug driving is even greater?
Well, sorry, I don't want to be scaremongering or anything, but it would be safe to assume that it's certainly well in excess of those figures. I mean, I would hazard a guess that for every one case detected and brought before the courts, there's certainly another case out there which can't be brought before the courts because it wasn't detected and so forth. So, I mean, we know anecdotally these things. Now, I don't like to base my opinions on anecdotes, but I mean, it's quite obvious that really the only conversation I think we should be having at the moment in the run-up to Christmas is for all of us in families, communities and groups, and in our local groups, whether we're choir singing or whether we're going out there doing charitable works and rattling buckets to collect during the Christmas season. I think we should be having these conversations and talking about the dangers of ending up in a situation where a loved one is maimed or a loved one is lost.
And with everything you have stated, and at this point, and we hope it doesn't go any higher, but as you say, Christmas is a particularly busy time on the roads, and I would imagine, given what you've just said, you feel there'd be potential for drug driving happening over the Christmas period, and the potential for that to increase. 179 people have lost their lives on the road up to yesterday. That's 15 more than the same period, which is pretty much all of the year for 2024, which is why you're calling for an expanded roadside drug testing regime this Christmas. What would that look like in practice, though, Cynthia? Particularly given the Garda, as you say, the Garda have finite resources.
Yes, they do have finite resources, but I'm not in charge of the logistics. I'm not the Commissioner of An Garda Síochána, but presumably with the breadth and the depth of resources that he does have, surely he would be able to redeploy for a temporary period to this particular pinch point, as we go into the Christmas and the New Year. But I also think that in the longer term, we really need to be looking at the sanctions, because the sanctions I mentioned earlier on don't seem to be deterring people. So another sanction we should be thinking of is definitely perhaps increased penalty points for those who are repeat convictors or repeatedly convicted, repeat offenders, I should say, and also a minimum requirement of resitting the driving test. I mean, put the pain and put the pressure on people to actually have to apply for a driving test, not be able to drive before they get their driving test and do their driving test and pass it again. And also, and at the start of my mandate last year, I laid out a campaign talking about the interlock technology that's used in other countries in the EU, which I've studied and I've looked at because I'm on the Transport Committee. And we should really be looking at sanctions being made available to a district court judge for, again, a repeat offender on drug driving to be told, listen, one of the sanctions is you're going to have this interlock tech fitted to your car. You won't be able to start your car if you don't pass your drugs test before you start the engine.
And do you believe that all of this is needed because the current testing and enforcement levels simply aren't enough, that they're not acting as enough of a deterrent?
Yes, I think they are enough given the resources. I would never say An Garda Síochána is not doing enough, because I do believe they are doing enough with their finite resources. But I do think we can't put all the pressure on Garda Síochána and say, listen, you own the problem, you do everything. It's quite clear the judicial system and the sanctions made available to district court judges should also be deployed. I mean, every sanction we can think of should be piled on for this kind of an offence because it is egregious. It's got long and lasting effects. It's detrimental not only to people's lives and to their loved ones left behind, but to people's mental health as well, the mental health of the families that are left behind and that they have to deal with it for decades. And sorry, if somebody doesn't lose their life, but they're maimed for life, as I experienced myself with my late uncle, who was very badly injured in a car crash and was rendered a paraplegic, you're talking about a life that is absolutely spoilt, not only for the person left with the disability, the severe disability, but also for the families that have to care, and also for the state that has to make sure that that person is cared for as well in terms of medical care.
You raised the idea just a moment ago, Cynthia, of adapting interlock technology to detect drugs rather than alcohol, and mentioned looking into how it works abroad. Can you outline further the international evidence or experience and on how effective it is and how Ireland could learn in this area? Would it be something that could be rolled out here?
Yes. I spoke about this last year. I'm so sorry I don't have the data right in front of me to quote you right now off the top of my head, and I don't like doing that, but I do know the research and analysis that I did approximately 12 months ago, and the figures that I yielded and the press releases that I sent out about it did show clear data where there was an improvement based on these sanctions or based on these measures that were taken. There's no doubt about it that the interlock technology does work. So I've no hesitation in recommending that. And yes, of course, these things cost money, but this is a cost-benefit analysis. They do cost money, but obviously they're saving money on the other side of these awful tragedies.
You did say that you believe the Gardaí, given the resources they currently have, are testing and enforcing as much as they possibly can, and that is working up to the amount of resources that they do have, but maybe not just from the Gardaí alone, but in other areas of life in Ireland. Do you feel that drug driving, compared to drink driving, has just been underestimated in terms of policy focus, and that needs to be a shift in that?
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I think everybody thought, I'm long enough now to have lived through a lot of decades of boom and bust, and I think we all thought after the Celtic Tiger that the cocaine epidemic was dead and gone. Anything but. The cocaine epidemic is an epidemic once again, and it's higher and it's wider amongst all classes of people, amongst all age cohorts. It's unbelievable. And yes, I think we were slow to react. And I think we were behind the curve, so to speak. We're catching up now nicely. But again, for this particular season, I lay emphasis on the next 4 to 5 to 6 weeks. When people are out and about, we don't want to see more loved ones lost, unnecessary lives lost. I looked at Crime Call last night. I shed a tear listening to the story of the Moonies in Mooneen Row in County Kilkenny. My friends and my constituents, I know them well, and they lost their dear son Cian some years ago in a road traffic accident due to speed. We don't want to see families like that grieving going forward. Yes, of course, there will always be fatalities, but the numbers are far too high, so we must deal with this.
Cynthia, what would you say to anyone considering driving after taking drugs, not just this Christmas, but in general all year round?
I would say close your eyes for 30 seconds and think of me, who lost a father or an uncle. Think of other people who have lost loved ones, and think that your whole life could be turned upside down. Whether you end up in a fatality yourself or causing a fatality, your life will never be the same in the blink of an eye for the sake of an extra drink or over drinking, an extra drug or illegal drug taking. But I would say just stop and think, even for 30 seconds. Try and have a mature conversation in your head. And I would encourage all family members to have that conversation with a loved one that they think might take a risk or could decide, I chance it.
An important message to get out, as we say, particularly this Christmas, but one that is applicable all year round. Cynthia Ní Mhurchú, thank you for joining us on Morning Focus.